Good morning and welcome to Bibi's cooking show. So in my last video I said that I was gonna do sourdough bread next time, but I thought it could be fun to just see what you can do with the starter, because it's a lot of work that goes into this little fellow, and it kind of made me hesitate myself to start making regularly bread, because it needs to be fed and you need to sort of discard, you need to use it, and it needs some maintenance, But I have a few tricks up my sleeve to how to maintain this starter in a not annoying way where you're throwing starter away. I basically use it and it just flows very well. Today I'm going to show you how I make pancakes with this starter only, no other flour, just this starter and making it into a pancake. And you might think, oh, that sounds like sour pancakes, but no, I've made sure in my recipe that I kind of balance acidity out with some sugar and some cinnamon, and they don't taste sour. Let me show you how I make that. And actually also last night I made muffins, chocolate muffins, and I let the batter ferment for 5 hours and okay, let me show you. Used only sourdough to lift them up, and that worked, and they're definitely quite beautiful. I'm still gonna try, it's my first time trying to make them, so I will make them again and possibly adjust a few things, but I can share the recipe with you and it's perfectly good. But, let me show you a good one. They rose a little unevenly, like some here and some there, but for the most part they were just very nice. They have a good texture and they didn't taste sour at all, no sourdough flavor. They had a slight, bready kind of texture that you would expect from a fermented wheat product, but no, you would fool anyone and they wouldn't know that it was sourdough, They definitely, they're good. So you can do things with sourdough starter. It's not, an experiment with it. And this way it's just better for you to eat sweets, because even though sweets have whole wheat and coconut, there's coconut sugar in them, by the way. Even if they have good sugars and whole wheat and eggs and butter and good stuff, it's still not fermented wheat. It's still just, in its pure form, and it's difficult to digest for us. So I think it's great if we can turn more sweets into a fermentation style product, because then it's going to be much better to digest and you can, have it regularly and feel great. So why not? Then see you in a bit for sourdough pancakes. I realized that I skipped how I maintain this guy. So basically what I do is when I just make it from the start. By the way, it gets better with time, so not until you have maintained it for a few weeks, you will notice that how strong and how reliable it gets. So when you're starting out in the beginning, feel free to aid it with some commercial yeast. When you're just add it a little bit to the bread, so that you don't waste beautiful breads just because your sourdough starter is not fully, at its peak. There's no shame in that, and it's a much better way to start, because you will feel encouraged by a beautiful bread that you made, and it rose and it bubbles and it, does what a bread should do. Anyway, so takes a few weeks, so be patient with it. But I only start by making just enough for my bread recipe. So this works for me, because I just make one bread recipe every week, twice a week, and I'm not going between lots of different recipes. So maybe that's a good idea for you, to just simplify it, stick to just one kind of bread, at least in the beginning, and then just make enough for that recipe. And then you're basically using this whole jar when you're making your bread. And that's a good thing, because you only want to leave a little bit behind, because every time you're feeding your starter, you're creating more and more bacteria friends, and they will demand more and more food. And so you want to keep it as a rule to kind of empty this jar as much as you can every time you're gonna feed it. You're feeding it, but maybe think about it more as you're like starting over again. But there are some bacteria in here that are ready to eat, So yeah, that's how I do it. And then, I keep it in the fridge. You can pull it, you can kind of control it, and you can feel it, how fast it's eating and how fast it's bubbling. Just move it from the fridge and out, on the counter. And what else can I say? Yeah, so there's also this thing that people take it out of the fridge, feed it right before they're about to make bread. I never do that. I just keep it good, and I only have as much as I need, and I try my best to use it for other things as well. But it's not that I I bake twice a week, so I knead it twice for my bread, and then it's nice to knead it a bit more in the week to keep this process going. For instance, for pancakes or for muffins or for chocolate cake or something. Pancakes is a good thing because, who doesn't like pancakes on a weekend? And if it's not the weekend, you can even make them and then just freeze them and then toast them, and so. It's also just fine in the fridge for a while, bubbly. It's not gonna, you can still just take it out of the fridge and use it straight for the recipe. And as I say, if it's not doing exactly what you want it to be doing, then have some commercial yeast as a plan B, I don't know if it's the yeast in the bacteria or something, it's kind of low, but it's still fermenting the bread, so it's turning sour and it's beautiful, but it just doesn't get the rise, Bring in the commercial yeast. It's totally fine. You still fermented the bread. Okay. So here we are with the ingredients, and we are just using this starter and no flour. So this recipe serves 2 people max, if you have other foods to eat, pretty much. It's more like a 1-person kind of recipe, but definitely serves 2 especially if you have other foods to eat. All right. So now we have. So we also have salt, cinnamon, vanilla, coconut sugar, 2 eggs, some avocado oil. And there's no right or wrong way to mix this really, maybe add the oil in the end. So you just mix it and you fry it. I will fry it on this steel pan with some oil, and the general rule with heat and pancakes is that, you want your pancakes to be nicely browned underneath and a little dry or fully dry on top, and then you flip them. And these are kind of thinner style pancakes, more like crepes sort of. But I have also made them as a thicker kind of American style sort of pancake. And then I just make this recipe and add 15 grams of whole rolled oats into the batter. And that was it, right? Yeah, I just add 15 grams of oats into the recipe and keep it in the fridge overnight. And they were also beautiful. I don't know if you can put flour, 15 grams of flour. I'm not sure if that would be correct, but at least, the oats were beautiful, and there was a little bit of chewing them, but barely. So I really enjoyed that recipe as well. So it was a little bit thicker, the result, and serves it made 5 or 6 pancakes, so also serves 1 to 2 people. So I will just mix this up and fry them and show you the end result. Okay. Oh, I forgot, I should add actually that you can double, triple this recipe. But you just have to make more starter then. And you adjust that to how many breads you're baking a week and the size of your family and all that, you know. So, but this is basically 60 grams of whole wheat flour and 50 grams of water. So just a little more flour than water, but basically 50-50, you know. In fact, you can just do 50-50, water and flour, and get a fine result. But this is 60 grams whole wheat flour, 50 grams of water, and that's it. That's all that's in here. So you can double it and, you know, do any amount you like. And then of course you need to double the recipe. But here in this recipe, it's 100 grams of starter. So you would need 200 or 300 if you are more people. Okay. So there they are. All done. And hello. Yes, I recommend don't put too much oil on the pan, because then they will just look a bit funny, like, you know, I hid the one that looks a bit funny. It looks a bit like this. Goes a little crazy. I think the oil kind of creates more heat on the pan, so don't use too much butter or oil when frying, because we also put a tablespoon of oil in the batter, so it should be fine. And yeah, as you can see, it's like serves 1 to 2, right? So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will try to make pancakes if you start a starter and you want to go all in with baking bread and ferment your grains and have a good happy belly. Then yeah, if you make bread, you can also make pancakes, and you can make muffins, and you can make cinnamon rolls if you're into that, and maybe porridge or something, you know. Go crazy, experiment. But it's not scary, and it's, you know, I made these on the spot. I didn't have to wait. It was super easy to mix. If you want the thicker version, you do it the night before and let it ferment in the fridge overnight, and you know, that's fine, and it's ready to go, and you don't have to worry about over mixing or anything, you know, whipping up eggs, or, you know, it's just very simple and good. So I think that was all I wanted to share today, and I'll have some pancakes now. So have a great weekend, and see you next time for some sourdough bread. Bye!